Hi, everybody. My name is Kelsey Lebrun-Keswani. I'm the director of RAIN International. This is an introduction video to the training modules that RAIN has prepared, thanks to a grant from the City of Beaverton, to train organizations on expanding your own services and service models for serving refugee and migrant communities. Each of the videos that you find on this page are short samples of wider training modules that we can conduct either in person or, due to the current COVID situation, virtually to your organization. We've really designed them for healthcare facilities and institutions. We've designed them for educational institutions and for public and private social service providers and other governmental agencies. RAIN stands for Refugee Assistance and Information Network. We're a global network of professionals. We provide technical assistance and consultation. We are undergoing research and policy design. And we also develop curriculum for universities and other educational institutions. So why are toolkits important? Well, funding and program loss is unprecedented at this time. You will learn in some of the other videos from my colleagues that never before have we seen resettlement numbers cut and migrant programs being targeted as systematically as they are currently. Anti-migrant sentiment is high currently, in addition to racism, xenophobic attitudes, and general misinformation about what's going on. Policy changes have been instrumental. They have been regular. And they're hard to keep track of. So we want to help break down what is going on, what has happened, and what's changed. And generally, we've identified that there is really a lack of capacity for a lot of mainstream organizations to serve these populations. There's a tendency to just say, oh, you know, so-and-so agency in town can serve this family better than I can or better than we can. But it's just not, that's just not enough anymore. We all have the responsibility as organizations to really build up our own capacity. So we, as part of the toolkit that we're providing, we're going to offer some equity and inclusion models. We're going to provide training on migration facts, and so that you can rely on the facts and not the frames. But also we're going to talk to you about how we can confront narratives about migration, so that we all, again, can take that organizational responsibility. So here's what the training modules include. You'll be hopefully you'll be quite impressed with the breadth and the depth and the knowledge that my colleagues are going to share with you regarding how to build up your service model. I'm talking about implications of trauma and anxiety around deportations, around policy changes. We're going to talk to you about the state of refugee resettlement in Oregon. We're going to talk to you about who's here, who was here previously, and now who's been banned from traveling, and why that change has mattered. How to confront migration narratives, we believe, is really one of the most founding and critical issues that we all need to start working on. And in order to do that, we need to know what are the facts. So we're going to start off with a quick quiz to really start testing yourself and really start identifying. So, number one, define the following: migrant, immigrant, refugee, and asylee. Number two, in the US, which of the above are legal statuses? Number three, true or false: the world has more migrants now than at any point in documented history. Number four, true or false: the world has more refugees or asylum seekers now than at any point in history. Number five, true or false: refugee resettlement has always been a partisan issue, and the numbers of refugees allowed into the US varies based on the current administration. Note on this one that the Refugee Act, which really is the design of our current refugee resettlement system, was designed in 1980 during the Carter administration. No judgment. Take a few minutes, get out a pen and paper, and try to answer these. We've done this training around the country, and we find that we really need to start from the beginning because our knowledge about who migrants are is really clouded by narratives and frames that are perpetuated by the media, by political leaders, etc., who often have alternative motives. All right, so number one, who's a migrant? A migrant, per definition, is anyone who's moved across a border away from his or her place of origin. Most of the time when we talk about migrants, we talk about international migrants. I'm currently living in Portugal. I'm a migrant. Again, while it's critical to understand people are not defined by labels, we must understand the facts of migration in order to avoid making assumptions and perpetuating xenophobic myths and perpetuate frames that are really based on other alternatives. B, an immigrant is a person who moves into a country, and an immigrant is someone who's moved out of a country. A refugee is a person designed by the United Nations who's unable or unwilling to return to their country. This is a person who's been designated legal status overseas, not in the US. You cannot step out of Syria and say, I'm a refugee, my country's at war, I wish to seek refuge in the US. It doesn't work that way. You must be granted status, you must be vetted by the US. It can take many, many years in order to gain refugee status. And the presidential ceiling is what determines how many numbers in which countries are allowed refuge into the US. An asylum seeker is someone who has stepped into the US and says exactly the same thing as a refugee, except again, they're in the US. So they've stepped foot and they said, I wish to seek refuge in this country due to being persecuted in my own country. An asylee is someone who's granted status, okay? Currently, asylum seekers on the US-Mexico border are being held in Mexico, which is technically against international law and the Refugee Convention. Number two, a refugee and an asylee are legal statuses. So a migrant, again, is somebody who's moved across the border. It doesn't indicate status, and same with the immigrant. Number three is false. 3.5% of the world is considered a migrant. Now, if you step back and think about that for a minute, that means that more than 96% of the world does not leave their country of origin, stays in the same place. A very small percentage of the world moves. And that has been the same percentage, give or take a bit, throughout documented history. Number four is true. However, so standing at over 70 million people, there are actually more people displaced currently due to war and violence than at any point in documented history. And number five is false. So refugee resettlement has always had bipartisan support. In fact, during the Reagan and Bush years, we saw an average of 70,000 people being allowed into the country through the presidential determinant ceiling. Only in the last 3 years has this become a partisan issue. So each of these modules, short videos, you will see sort of similar information. You'll find one slide with a toolkit graphic, and that's really for your own toolkit, your own knowledge and information. And in this case, for this presentation, we really are sort of charging you to stay informed. Follow these sites, sign up for their email updates. We all need to be responsible for following global migration trends, global news about why people are moving, push factors, countries that are in conflict, etc. So these are all podcasts or publications or social media sites that we as an organization follow. And follow us also on social media. And if you'd like to invite us after watching the other videos in person, please email us or click the link and we'll be happy to work with you. Thank you so much. And again, we look forward to working with you further.